calling all sports fans and athletes. Have you ever longed for a place to converse about your passion for sports? Hang out, talk sports, meet athletes, and be heard. Sports Chat TV. And here's your host, Brooke Brown.
Hey everybody, I know the games are on. Welcome to Stanley Cup Playoffs night. Thank you to all the viewers or the people who will watch this in the future on YouTube and on my site, sportschat.tv. But I first want to introduce my guests. Well, they'll introduce themselves. We'll start with Brian, and then we'll go forward. And just introduce yourself and tell yourself about what you do, how much you like sports, what's your familiarity, and then we'll go from there.
Right, well,
so welcome, Brian.
Oh, thank you. Well, as she said, my name is Brian McDonald, and as far as sports goes, I'm extremely into hockey. It's been a part of my life for almost all of it. And I'm also into cycling, and that's pretty much it. Hockey's one of my businesses. I coach hockey, I train goalies, and play whenever I get a chance to. That pretty much rounds it out.
Sweet. Welcome, Chris.
Hi, my name is Chris Kosmala. I work in CRM and database marketing for Comcast Spectacor in Philadelphia. I grew up playing football and baseball, so those have always kind of been my two sports. But growing up in the Bay Area, once the Sharks were born, I really started to get into hockey and was a huge Sharks fan. But of course, now that I'm in Philadelphia, I got to pull for the orange and black. So a little disappointed that they lost to the team that's playing tonight. But you know, that's just the way it rolls sometimes.
Word. Well, I live in Arizona, and I'm a Bruins fan, so, because the Coyotes, what? Really?
Are they still in Phoenix?
Yeah, they are. For now. No. Tomorrow they might be somewhere else. We were just talking about that in the pre-show, about how there's a rumor, and then they were good, and so nobody knows really what's going on with the team, and how bandwagon Arizona fans are when they were doing well.
Right.
So, yeah. We were just talking about that. I was like, people know who the Coyotes are? Really?
Sure.
Following the Diamondbacks? What?
No, I just read a story on them probably a few weeks ago, how they're perpetually in limbo. They have a terrible arena deal. They don't have a lot of resources for their team and, you know, to attract big players, but somehow they just find ways to win. You know, it's not always pretty, but they win games.
I know. I've been to more concerts at their arena than hockey games. That's sad.
Wow.
It's sad.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I've never been out there, but I hear that their arena's kind of just out in the middle of nowhere, just kind of by itself.
Yeah, it's in the very, very west of Phoenix, and it's right next to the Cardinal Stadium.
Right, which is also
big, huge. It's in Glendale, and yeah, there's like a kind of a mall area, but it's like you have to drive way out BFE to get to it, and then there's stuff there, and then pretty much everybody lives on the other ends. You know what I'm saying? So it's
sure.
like. Yeah.
Definitely.
But anyway, that's where Phoenix had the room to build them, so.
Yeah.
There you go. So anyway, tonight's game, as it's currently going, LA is up in goal, or did I miss a goal? I don't know. So, surprised about LA and New Jersey, or did you like how everything went? Obviously not with the Oilers, but anyway, I'm a Bruins fan, so what can I say? So what is your take on the series right now? I mean, I know it's game one, and we still have a few more games to go, but it seems to be very kind of even other than the one goal. So either one of you can, from what you've seen so far.
Chris, you want to go first?
I think it's a great story just starting in the West from the Kings' perspective, you know, showing how important it is, especially in hockey, to be hot at the right time. You know, they were the 8th seed coming in. They barely made the playoffs. I think it was in the last game or second to last games when they secured their spot. But they go and they oust the two top seeds in the Western Conference. And, of course, the whole storyline has been how active their front office or you know, I guess their front office has been on social media. They've really put the spotlight on themselves, put themselves out there, kind of made themselves known that, you know, we're here, you know, we're getting hot at the right time, and we're winning a lot of games. And that's really, I think, put a lot of attention on them. I mean, maybe not in the least controversial way, but at the same time, I think it's still putting themselves out there in that light. And obviously it's good for them, it's good for the team, and hopefully they can show that hockey can thrive, you know, in a non-traditional hockey market, you know, since their whole franchise has been the Wayne Gretzky years, and then that's about it.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of, you said social media, I know we've talked about it on the other chats, the sports PR chat and all those other chats that are currently going on and follow you. But what do you think about the social media and how the Rangers handled their, like, hey, the players can't tweet or whatever, and why is there such a restriction, it seems to be, in hockey other than other sports? You know, you hear about everything Shaq's doing every day. So, like, you know, why can't hockey players express how they're feeling? What do you think the reason is?
I mean, most of the rules as far as social media goes were outlined this season. A lot of players got into Twitter, and then some guys said, you know, a few things that there was some backlash about. So I think what they did was they just wanted to pull everyone back in, and you know, they didn't want any game day tweets, and you know, naturally they didn't want anything that was going to be overly controversial. But at the same time, I think the NHL has probably had some of the most entertaining in all professional sports. I'm sure people are aware of Paul Bissonnette.
Yeah.
Also known as Biz Nasty.
But isn't that? I know some people would say on one end maybe that behavior is kind of bad for the league, but in another, I see like on the other opposite end as, well, at least they're being themselves and they're telling it like it is, and it's not a lot of BS, you know, a lot of like what you're expecting from them. So I think it's in a way good for the sport. Whether, I mean, not specific actions, whether you know, whatever the drama is, but what I'm saying is at least getting feelings out. I mean, everybody has to like say what they're feeling, especially if it's your sport, right?
Yeah, sure. You don't want a league full of robots either. You want people that you can get along with. And in Paul Bissonnette's case, he's not a player that's in any other situation would be in the spotlight, but he's made himself one of the most popular players in the league, even though he barely plays.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, it's interesting because a lot of people tag this sport as, you know, more Canadian than American. But I think even though the teams are all spread out in different areas and, you know, certain teams are better because of the Canadian or the northern feel or whatever, shouldn't it, you know, they've tried to make it spread out, having a team in LA, having a team, you know, on the West Coast, having it in Arizona. Why can't they, like, spread out what everybody else is feeling, regardless of where the team is or the history of the team? I actually
really liked what the NHL did with the All-Star game during the Skills Challenge, and then during the game itself when they were miking up players. They had guys, you know, during the game that they would actually talk to while they were out there skating. And what I learned, I mean, I kind of already knew this, but I was watching the game with some friends who are really big hockey fans. Hockey players have some of the best personalities in sports, and especially during the skills competition when they had a couple of the goalies in there just sitting there cracking jokes. Like one guy said, you know, if I give up less than 10 goals, you know, I'll be happy with my performance. And they have some of the best personalities, and I think that was a great way to engage fans. You know, guys were there, you know, posting on Facebook and Twitter during the skills competition when they weren't interacting with fans, and I actually loved it. I mean, I think that they did a great job with that. And then kind of on the flip side, New York, they kind of went away from that, you know, especially during their playoff run when they say, you know, players can't, you know, be posting that at all. And I think that, you know, I think there's a time and a place to regulate it, but, you know, if they're on a day off or if they're, you know, just, you know, expressing how they feel, I mean, that's, you know, how you grow, how you can engage fans and, you know, really make yourself felt, you know, to your fans and to you know, in your market and everywhere else too.
Definitely.
I agree. I mean, you know, trash talk is part of sports. Isn't that, you know,
but
I think they're taking it a little too far as, you know, personally. I mean, some things can be taken out of context, I understand, especially on Twitter and 140 characters or whatever you post, whatever your medium is. But at the same time, like, I mean, isn't that why people go to sports bars and watch games, just to razz each other and have a good time? That's what sports are about, right?
Sure.
So what the restriction on hockey, I think a lot of people would be getting more into hockey if it wasn't in a way different than other sports portray themselves and interact with their fans. Do you agree or disagree?
I do. I mean, I mentioned the Kings earlier. I love what they did. You know, they brought themselves to the attention of fans, you know, who might not, you know, one of my friends tweeted the other day, he lives up in New York, that if, you know, it wasn't for the Kings, all their efforts, he wouldn't be, you know, even be thinking about them right now. And, they've been controversial at times, but they haven't, gotten personal with anybody. They haven't said anything worse than you've heard from, like, football or basketball players. I mean, as long as you're not getting personal, or, specifically targeting someone, I mean, I really don't have a problem with it, and I think it's great for the sport.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone knows exactly what Chris is talking about, but the Kings Twitter account has been run in a very unorthodox manner, as far as you would follow a team and expect, they're just going to give me updates on what's going on and give me a link to a press conference or something like that. But they've gone a completely different direction and have interacted with people and trash talk other teams and throw little jabs in here and there. And I think, personally for me, it makes it easy to root for the team knowing that there's that kind of human aspect going on with social marketing.
Yeah. I mean, I spoke about geographical bounds within hockey and, how people view it as a Canadian sport. But do you think that if those stigmas weren't on it, or the run that New Jersey and LA are doing right now, do you think the changing of who wins every year is really great for the sport, as opposed to, like, in basketball or football when there's dynasties going on? You know what I'm saying? Do you think it's great that every year, like that the Bruins are, got out first round after winning last year? I mean, the variety and the skill set changes every playoffs, right? So.
Yeah, and the salary cap kind of limits the ability to develop a dynasty. But I like the fact that there's different teams winning. But if you look at the past however many years, it's mostly been American teams that have been winning the Cup. But as far as erasing that stigma, I don't know if it's possible, because if you look at the teams, they're all melting pots of Canadians, Americans, Europeans. But it's still, I think, to the common casual viewer, it's not an American sport, and that's where you kind of like fall into trouble, I think.
I personally, in the Winter Olympics, a couple years ago, when it wasn't it U.S. versus Canada?
Yep.
And how epic that game was, and everybody was watching it and was rooting for either side. Wasn't that? I think it was great for the sport, in my opinion. But it's interesting to see the difference in rules between NHL and Olympic hockey.
Yeah.
Like, anybody want to focus a little bit on that and tell our viewers whether that's good or not? That the fighting that we may see in the NHL wasn't allowed. It was more taboo in the Olympics.
Oh, yeah, it's not allowed in the Olympics.
Yeah.
But for me, the biggest difference in Olympic hockey isn't exactly within the rules, but in the playing surface. The rink is bigger. It's longer and wider, which opens up the game a little bit more. So a lot of people were saying the NHL should adopt that to open it up, make it faster. But then there's the matter of reducing seats and stuff like that. So I don't know.
Never know. Right. I mean, it was just exciting to see that. I mean,
yeah. But the way that they've changed the rules in the NHL, it did get a lot closer to Olympic hockey. When they took away the red line to eliminate line passes, and they threw the shootout in there and got a lot stricter with penalties. But I think where it's at, I think either way it's going to be very entertaining.
Same with you, Chris. You agree?
I would definitely agree. I think, especially, I remember when they got rid of the red line, I think just watching the game, I think the speed definitely picked up more, and I think it's been great for the game. I also love shootouts. I mean, I hated games ending in ties. I mean, shootouts, I know from a player's perspective, isn't a perfect solution because it kind of puts the game more to chance, but I think it's definitely more exciting for the fans. And, like I said, I hate it when games end in a tie, so at least that, someone gets a win, someone gets a loss. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, we were talking in the pre-show about NBC Sports Network, versus now becoming that. What do you feel about that change and how ratings and how? Because I wasn't able to watch a lot of the playoffs. I had to get all of the highlights in SportsCenter, But now I'm watching on NBC because it's the network everybody has. So, what do you feel about that and how the exposure of hockey is somewhat changing with the name of a network? You know what I'm saying? So, what do you feel about that, Chris?
I think the fact that it's now on a little bit more relevant network, I mean, I don't know if since it got rebranded to NBC, if the distribution's that much higher. If it is, great. Obviously, that's good for the sport, but the fact that they have the NBC brand behind it now at least gives it some, that bit of credibility, and hopefully if it is more widely distributed, it is more accessible to fans who, either want to watch, or if, their friends are able to watch, inviting people over, having people watching those games. I mean, I think it's great for the league. It's still a little disappointing that, they can't get at least, a few games a week on ESPN, but, that's a whole, other, it's a whole other can of worms, just, the history of those two. But, I mean, if it gets the league out there into more homes, or, it makes it easier to watch games, and obviously I'm in favor of it.
Right. What do you think over there, Brian? Same thing?
Yeah, I have NHL Game Center, so I was able to watch everything streaming because I don't have any cable at home. So I didn't really face that struggle as far as not being able to see games. But I agree with just making an NBC, showing that a big network is investing into the league. Honestly, in the past I would say, yeah, we need to be on ESPN, but right now it's pretty much turned into, Comcast versus
right
ABC, ESPN. So
is the NBC Sports Network, is it better distributed than Versus, or is it about the same? I mean, I really don't know.
I don't know exact figures, but I know that a lot more people have been able to watch the playoffs.
Oh, good.
That's good. The ratings are great. I'm sure finals will be up. Still 1-0.
1-0 Kings, right?
Yep. Well, that was a huge slam right there. So, any final thoughts on the series, predictions, or I know both of you are like, yay, Kings. So, other than that, any predictions?
Well, for me, it's not just hating on the Devils because they beat the Rangers, but the Kings aren't. They'll say that the Kings are similar to teams that the Devils have faced, but they're not really the same. I think they're the first team that has like a very complete arsenal. Like the Panthers were kind of middle ground for everything. They didn't really have too much all-star offense or defense or goaltending. I thought the Devils were going to win that series. And then when they played Philly had pretty decent offense, but they had not that great defense and very poor goaltending. And then they played the Rangers, who had good defense and good goaltending, but the offense didn't show up. But now they're facing a team that has a really, extremely good goalie, very good defense, and also potent offense. So I think the Kings have the edge.
So, being that they're up 1 goal already, it's a good thing.
Well, as long as they can keep it up.
Yep. They got hot at the right time, so I mean that's what it's all about when you have a long playoff like this, as opposed to football where it's one and done. So I mean they're obviously hot at the right time, and like you said, they just got to keep it up.
And to the Devils' credit, they also did the same thing, and I'm sure they surprised a lot of people with the way. I mean, from my perspective, it's hard to give them credit because I don't like them, and I have to deal with all my friends talking trash on me because I live in New Jersey. But they're not just their scorers, but especially like their fourth liners, third liners, the guys that are supposed to grind and put pressure on the other team's top lines have done a really good job, and that's why they're in the final.
Alrighty, any final thoughts before we all go back to watching the final period soon?
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me tonight.
Alright, good night. Have a good night, everybody.